We should be good. So let's get this started back up. Ben, here's what happened. Hold on. Are we back up? We're back up. Okay. We're back up. Let me throw this link out there and make sure we're good. That was wild.
I was dangerously confused. It was, we're back in business. Brett just dropped that in the Slack channel. Good to have Brett back, by the way, if you're watching, buddy. And yeah, that was, I thought it was on my end, but no, your power went out.
Yeah. My power just flashed. It's a nice sunny day. Power just flashed. I heard everything go out and then start back up, and it was gone. That was it. It was gone. So I don't know, dude, but here we are. That's the weirdest thing.
It was bizarre.
So whatever. We got plenty to keep talking about. I'm putting that tweet out there just to make sure we're in good shape. We were on Cleveland and Atlanta discussing. Someone said that DraftKings dropped the stream because we were talking about their pricing. I mean, some of the pricing is pretty wild, and you've got Trae Young here at 11 too. It's a very expensive price point. Like you were saying, I believe the only thing that would really give you any reason to play him would just be like a fraction of the ownership, right?
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. You know, when you're talking about Trae Young is fantastic. If he gets going from three, he could break the slate. Mm-hmm. But the chances that happens relative to the ownership is what you're weighing. This is we've got John Collins back from his long suspension. But I mean, I'll throw it right back to you. I'm not really interested in going there right off the bat. We'll see what happens with his price tag as he gets going. But that's more of a wait and see for me after that 25 games on the shelf.
Yeah. I'm not going there. And John Collins is returning. That's good. They need him. It wasn't an injury. It was a 25-game suspension. He was playing big minutes. He was, pretty much giving you that same reliable production that you got last season, but nothing crazy through his first 5 or 6 games. To me, he's a little bit too expensive here. I don't know what type of run he's going to get. In all seriousness, the Atlanta Hawks with John Collins back in the mix, that just makes them pretty underwhelming here. It is a game with a high total, and Cleveland Cavaliers are a dreadful team with a bad defense. But when I look at how I have these guys in terms of like where are they at from a value standpoint, I had been rostering some Kevin Huerter at times recently. Getting the backup point guard minutes was pretty appealing, and his minutes were up significantly. So I got some solid games out of him at a discounted price, like 4,200 against the Knicks. You get 34 DraftKings points. You feel pretty good. But now he's up to 5,100. So, yeah, he might be getting the minutes, but his usage was already trending down. And now John Collins is back in the mix. That hurts Kevin Huerter just from a usage perspective. $14 on Yahoo isn't bad, but John Collins returning is gonna hit a lot of these guys like Hunter and Huerter, and pretty much everyone not named. Might even affect Trae Young a little bit too.
When you're talking about that type of price tag, even marginal things, you can't be messing around. And that's really the thing with the Hawks. You mentioned it. I like the spot in theory, but you just look, the guys that are going to be doing the heavy lifting to me are just too expensive, especially on DraftKings. And then that directly impacts some of the value guys who are also getting to that price. You mentioned Herder. It's just not, the ceiling doesn't really seem to be there in the sense of, you're going to have to, with Trae Young and Collins, he's not playing, primary usage. So that's a little tricky. I wouldn't mind getting a piece of the game because, like I said, I don't think it's the worst on an 11-game slate by any stretch. But the pricing has to dictate where I go here, and that has tempered my expectations just a bit.
All right. What about the other side? Is there interest in the Cleveland Cavaliers coming in with a home game against the Atlanta Hawks? Like I said, I don't want to understate this. It should be a pretty appealing spot on both sides. The Hawks are 28th in defensive rating this year. They've seen their pace tick up recently. They're playing at a top 10 pace on the season now. So So you like to see all of that. I mean, it's definitely a good spot for the Cavs. The Cavs just suck. So I guess you have to weigh your options here. By the way, Atlanta over the last month playing at the fifth fastest pace in the league and sporting a 115 defensive rating, which is tied for fourth worst in the league. So they're consistently making for a very good matchup for opponents. So let's talk about it. If this game's close, do we get, say, 30 plus minutes again from Kevin Love? I don't know. He played 32 against Charlotte, and then in a close game against Memphis that they won, he played only 28, but he played well in both of them. I'm never opposed if he's cheap, or I'm sorry, if he's low owned, going to Kevin Love in a spot like this against Atlanta. He's not a priority at that price because I don't know what his minutes are going to look like. And then you start talking about guys like Tristan Thompson and Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson, who is one of the more volatile players in the league that helped people win tournaments the other night, Alex Baker being one of them. What are you doing here?
So, yeah, I mean, outside Kevin Love would be, I don't want to say the priority. He's definitely the priority from the Cavs for me. You look at him across the industry, especially on FanDuel, he's just 6,500 over there. That gives you some room, even if you get minutes in the high 20s. Obviously, you're looking for him to break 30, approach what he did against Charlotte and really contribute, but he's playing fantastic. The boards are there. The matchup is good. So that'd be where I look. I definitely lean to the front court with him or even Tristan. You mentioned, someone like Clarkson, that's a guy, he can every so often give you one of those almost out of nowhere. But to me, that's just, you don't want to chase things of that nature. So I'll keep it to the front court. Kevin Love, particularly on FanDuel, stands out.
Okay. Let's talk about Detroit and Philly. Before we do, if you haven't used the sign-up code NBA Strategy yet, when you do, because you should, it'll get you 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus, Platinum, all access membership to awesemo.com. That's NBA Strategy, all one word. If you go to awesemo.com/join, you'll see everything we have to offer. Actually, scroll to the bottom, you'll see the videos, like tutorial videos showing you how to use our most popular and our best tools that have helped a lot of people become successful DFS players. Ownership projections, player projections, the top stack tool, boom or bust tool, our premium Slack chat, and our lineup builder for those of you that aren't MMEing, that are playing 1 or 2 or 3 lineups per day. That's a really helpful tool. There's the Fantasy Cruncher add-on and all of the articles that our guys spend so much time on every single day. Awesemo.com/join. Use the sign-up code NBA Strategy, one word. Get 50% off your first week of Awesemo Plus. It's a win-win situation. If you don't like it, you will, but if you don't like it, you have 50% off a week. Just no reason not to do it. So awesemo.com/join, use the sign-up code NBA Strategy and say what's up in the Slack chat when you do. A lot of interesting characters in there. Many of them we like, right, Ben?
Majority.
All right, Detroit and Philly. This game, last I looked, let me refresh to see if we do finally have a line on this.
I mean, half the Pistons are injured.
We do have one. Yeah, Pistons 6.5-point dogs at home. 214 over under. 110.3 implied for the Sixers, 103.8 for the Pistons. Well, the big thing here is looking at Blake Griffin. He's questionable right now. Now it's an illness, right? So now it's an illness. It was knee issues. Now it's an illness. I don't know if he's going to play. Andre Drummond seemingly cleared his eye up after the avocado incident and has played quite well because he is very good. And with Blake Griffin out, that is going to play a role. He's 10-1, basically the same price as Joel Embiid. These two have had a battle brewing over the past few years. In large part, Joel Embiid has had the better of him, but that's why we're here to talk about it now. What are you doing with this game, Ben?
So this is a game, particularly with the Embiid Drummond matchup, I'm excited to see it. But with these prices, I actually am not that interested in either of them. They're great players, but man, that's going to obviously be, you're sacrificing a James Harden or a Beal and another guy if this is where you're paying up at that center position. They're just center. They're not multi-position eligible on DraftKings, which of course we know. But I mean, them playing each other, it's not a great matchup for either of them, in my opinion. Then you look elsewhere, with the Sixers, that's your account. I'll let you speak more to them. And on the Pistons side, I mean, we have a lot of Q tags. We have some guys that are out, but honestly, not a ton stands out. We'll have to see what happens with Blake Griffin. If he sits, well, we got guys like Markieff, we got Bruce Brown, but even these guys, I'm not looking to really get in there. There's some value across the slate, going back to the Wizards game. I'll be saying that a lot on this stream that I feel a lot more comfortable with.
I don't like this game very much at all. Yeah. I mean, if Blake is out, then I think we can have that discussion, because Andre Drummond without Blake has been a monster player. Like, rebound rate increases, everything increases. Per minute production skyrockets, usage goes up. I mean, despite Blake's bad performance this year, he's still operating with close to a 30% usage rate. You take that off the court, and whoever you replace him with is not going to be able to fill that void. 28.3% usage for Blake this season. Christian Wood's also out. Markieff Morris would figure to get those minutes. My issue with him, though, is even if Blake is out, you don't feel comfortable paying almost $6K for Markieff Morris, do you?
No, I mean, it's almost like all the value that you would get is already priced in.
Yeah. 5.3 on FanDuel isn't crazy at small forward, but
we're getting closer. But honestly, there are some other spots where I feel like the pricing has not caught up to the absolute bump you would get with some guys being out. And this is more of obviously to me, if Blake plays, he's not even close to in consideration. But even if he sits, not the best spot on the board in my eyes in this game. That's pretty unappealing towards the bottom.
I agree. Now, Morris is $15 on Yahoo. You mentioned getting closer on FanDuel.
Now we're talking.
$15 is pretty all right. I mean, he played 37 minutes last game. That to me would be enough to say, all right, I can get to Markieff Morris there, playing minutes at the 4, probably getting a few backup minutes at the 5. And then if that's the case, I can see myself having some of him there. But outside of that, probably not going to get there. And on the Philly side, though, you said you'd leave it to me. Joel Embiid in close games is seeing like 33. We saw 35 minutes against Miami, 36 against Boston. That's good because while you look at his fantasy point per game numbers this season, and you're like, oh, okay, he's been all right. But then you consider he's averaging 1.59 DraftKings points per minute. If Embiid does give you 33 minutes, you're getting really solid production from him. I have no issues with Joel Embiid today, but I don't think I have a single priority in this game.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you can always sell an elite player like Embiid, but you're talking about, would you rather find $800 and get to Harden? Would you rather take a $900 discount and get to Beal? Right. Guys like Westbrook, a lot of players. And for me, there's just a lot of ways where he could have an effective game and it's still not the optimal start just because someone like Harden goes out and puts up, a Harden-like line.
Yep. Luke Kennard's price is a little bit tough to get to as well. Yeah. If Blake is out, you'll see a usage increase for Kennard, but I don't think it's enough. I don't think any of it is going to be enough for these guys. And Rose should be back in action. His price comes up, but still, I think you're paying a little bit too much for most of the guys that you'd want to get to. So I'm with you. I don't see myself doing it. Miami and Utah. Here's another one. This is why you spend so much time talking about that Washington game, right?
Correct.
And some of these other games, because we're going to need them. Now, there might be some ways that we can get away from that, knowing that it's likely going to be very chalky. I don't know if this is one where we do. 213 total. The Heat are 4-point favorites, 108.5 implied for them, 104.5 for the Utah Jazz. Look, we've gotten very good production out of Jimmy Butler and out of Bam Adebayo. Both of them have been fantastic, right? Adebayo has been a revelation this season with Hassan Whiteside gone, playing monster minutes, producing numbers in essentially every fantasy relevant category. You're getting those numbers from him. And the same can be said for Jimmy Butler. They've been very similar in that rebounds, scoring, assists, blocks, steals. They're giving you enough of everything. But Jimmy Butler at 8,100 to me. I don't care if it's against Utah. That is very, and I know he's had a couple disappointing games lately. I'll take that into consideration. But Butler at $8,100 on DraftKings to me just seems like a very good value.
Yeah, he stood out, in a game that I don't overly like. You pull out the blowouts and things of that nature. His minutes are as secure as you're going to find on a slate like this. The volume will be there. Miami at home has been very strong. We know that, and it's a fine building block. Lower range of outcomes, in my opinion, but that's okay. You don't need. I stress this on most of the shows that I do. Sometimes I feel like people, because you do tournaments, you need everything to go right, but that doesn't mean you take 8 wild cards. You take 8 Jordan Clarksons and you go, I'm going to try to hit 60. Well, that's not going to work. You need some stability. And Jimmy Butler's a guy I feel pretty confident doesn't kill your lineups. He may not be the one that gets it done in the sense that he's the reason you win, but that doesn't need to be every single position. So he is a nice building block of a lot of different constructions.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's like a top play, but I would say DraftKings has significantly underpriced him. I don't care about the matchup here. When you just consider that, he's only $900 more than Tobias Harris. That just doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem right. Tobias Harris has been, okay at best. But then again, there are a lot of players that are underpriced. So that's what it'll bring us to in some of these other games. Outside of Butler, do you have anything from either side of this game that you're willing to roll the dice on?
Not really. I Donovan Mitchell was a guy that I looked at, and it's just, again, it's a product of an 11-game slate. Effective, the floor has been there repeatedly. The minutes are incredibly secure. He's going to play 35, 36 minutes, basically game in and game out. But I just don't know how high that ceiling is, even in effective games. So with so many other guys that I think, you're going to get some more boom bust, he kind of fell by the wayside, and I feel okay with that.
Yeah, now that, Goran Dragic is back, that means guys like Kendrick Nunn and Tyler Hero definitely go to the back burner again from a fantasy standpoint, at least until their salaries come back down to a reasonable, negotiable price. The only other guy, I would say when you talk about Mitchell, I'm with you. More so, would I rather have $8,100 Butler in a tough matchup or $8,300 Mitchell in a tough matchup? Give me the guy that when he's not producing or when his shooting is off can still give me 50 fantasy points. That's Jimmy Butler, not Donovan Mitchell.
Yep, and that's a product of you want to give yourself multiple outs. Sometimes it can be tough with certain players where you're just like, well, if this goes wrong, I'm completely dead. Jimmy Butler, not the case in that situation.
Absolutely. Memphis and San Antonio. So, Ben, if I told you last year that, Memphis and San Antonio would play and there would be a 228 over-under, you'd think I was crazy.
Yeah, I'd tell you, don't price overtime into your over-under.
Exactly. Double overtime, yeah.
Yeah, seriously, good point.
228 or 227. I think it's down to 227 and a half still. For
the
Memphis,
Spurs, man. This defense is ungodly.
I know. And these are two teams that literally played at a ridiculously slow pace before. Really, really slow pace. Now, over the last 30 days, both the Grizzlies and the Spurs are playing at a top 10 pace. So that's what you get. Both of them, Spurs 14th in defensive rating over that span. Memphis Grizzlies 21st. This is actually a good fantasy matchup. Never would have expected that to be the case coming into this season. But with Memphis overhauling that roster, taking Gasol off of it, Mike Conley, they're running. And honestly, I think John Morant's a perfectly fine play here. You got him at $7,100 on DraftKings. I assume he'll play he's 72 on FanDuel and on Yahoo. So perfectly fine on both of them. 28 on Yahoo. I really like Morant quite a bit. And, he played 30 minutes last game, 29 before that, 33, 32. So if you're giving him 31 minutes here, a guy that's producing well over a fantasy point per minute, has a usage rate up around 27, 28%, and has been doing a great job as a facilitator against the Spurs, a backcourt that really hasn't been able to stop anyone in a game with one of the higher totals on the slate. Morant does actually stand out to me as a pretty decent play, assuming we keep getting 30-plus minutes of work.
Yeah, he's a guy that, a lot of times he can be inefficient, but when he gets going, he contributes in so many other ways. The steals actually have been dormant, which that will regress in a positive way. I'm assuming you see that dunk almost. That would have been
Oh, dude. Yeah, I
so
saw it.
close. He's
He's
quite
trying.
athletic. He's trying, yeah. I like him. I like Jay Crowder, a mid-range play, at the forward position. Mints are a little in flux here and there, but ultimately when you zoom out, they are secure just north of 30. And that price tag to me just doesn't, it got a slight bump, but it doesn't reflect that you mentioned fast pace Spurs defense that is just not good. It's like the opposite of the Bulls. In my mind, I just can't accept that the Bulls are a solid defense.
Yep.
And in my mind, when I see it, it just intrinsically, I'm like, oh boy, Spurs, that could be tough, but it's not. And you really have to dig into the data. So I find myself liking both of them. And then on the other side, for me, DeMar DeRozan, I have no problem with it. The price, sub 7K on both FanDuel and DraftKings. He's not going to jump off the page, but at the same time, I think he'll have a very effective game against this Grizzlies defense.
Any interest in guys like Joe Val or DeJounte Murray?
So Murray is someone that, again, he finally came back. The minutes were creeping up, and then now we haven't seen it. Now, part of that, you can look at the Clippers game, a blowout. If you give him 30 minutes, I don't hate it by any stretch, but at the same time, I'm not really there, honestly, with the ceiling. I don't know how much it is, even in a decent game environment.
So also Brooklyn, it was Patty Mills just exploded off the bench for 27 points. So that had something to do with it. I think Murray's fine. If I were to, I don't have an issue with him. I have him as a decent point per dollar value. The minutes are, it's tough to say what he's going to get, but I'm projecting him for 28 minutes. And if
I think that's fair.
What's that?
Yeah, I think that's, if you ask me, I would say just sub of 30. So I'm right with you.
Yeah. And if I give him that, he ends up being a decent play here. So 28 minutes, I don't have a problem with it. He is somebody that can produce on, he's a multifaceted fantasy producer, and I'm okay with that. I do think this game has some pretty intriguing options, mostly Morant. You mentioned DeRozan. He has not had a very good season, but that price tag is way down, and he's facing a bad Memphis team, pace up team, bottom 5 defense. You have to take all of that into consideration. And Valanciunas, I would love to play the guy, right? He's questionable, by the way. So we'll see what happens there. His minutes are all over the map. Like, if you projected Joe Val 30 minutes today, I would, if you said, he's routinely getting 30 minutes, $6,500 Valanciunas becomes a very appealing play at 30 minutes.
Yeah, he would be up there with Vooch as my favorite centers. I can't argue with that. I certainly don't think and I don't think you're saying this either, that is not the case with his minutes. I'm not saying he can't get 30 minutes. It's not secure right now. And that's the risk you have to take. Do you have any interest? I don't think I'll ultimately get here in punting with the old Pirtle, with Jakob.
Pirtle the turtle.
Yeah. I mean, he's not seeing a ton of minutes. He's been very effective, racking them up, and he's very cheap.
Yeah. So he's basically just getting the backup center minutes. Last game doesn't count, but basically just getting those backup center minutes behind LaMarcus Aldridge. So that's a concern to me. So if Aldridge plays 36 minutes, Pirtle's probably playing 12. Maybe they play a few alongside each other, but his per minute production has been very good. I just don't know if that's enough. I'd need to see him get more minutes alongside Aldridge, or Aldridge start getting minutes at the 4, and you're not seeing that. I'll throw out there real quick, though, that if Joe Val is out, I really hope that Brandon Clark was starting last game, but he didn't. And then he took 2 fouls real quickly, 1-2, within a span of a minute. And in the first quarter, he came in with like 5.5 or 6 minutes left in the quarter, so he would have played that through. And then he finished out the half with 7 minutes. And then his rotation in the third and fourth quarter was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It looks like he probably would have played about 23 minutes, but I don't really know, and that sucks. And he didn't start. You saw Jaren Jackson starting with Crowder, Hill, Brooks, and Ja Morant. I guess you could say that Jackson is okay if Joe Val's out because he's going to get minutes at the 5, and that always makes him more appealing. But I think that's about it for me.
Yeah, I think that would not even open up minutes. It would just secure what you kind of just mentioned with Jackson. I feel the same way. Dylan Brooks is someone I didn't really mention. I wouldn't fault anyone from going there. Again, secure minutes, decent game, but you have so many other options. So you don't need to force that in if you don't want to.
So we got a line, we got a total now on the Denver Nuggets game. I mentioned that I thought that could be close to one of the lower totals on the slate. It is one of the lower, but it's not that low. It's 216.5. Phoenix Suns at home are dogs, 3.5 points, 106.5 total for them, 110 for the Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets have been a very difficult team to target this season because Nikola Jokic has been all over the map. It looks like he's figuring it out. It looks like, okay, here's the Jokic we were expecting all season. Rattle off a couple triple doubles, get the juices flowing, and then he comes plummeting back down to earth. I don't really know what the deal is with him. If I get Jokic at a good price, I'm going to keep playing him. If I don't, I'm not. DeAndre Ayton on the other side of this game is out, and then you have Frank Kaminsky expected to play. So he's out. Kaminsky's expected to play. Dario Saric is expected to play as we work our way through these injuries here. And then Ricky Rubio is questionable with that illness. That's a pretty big one. Let's actually start with the Phoenix side. I know I jumped around a bit, but let's start with the Phoenix side here and try and navigate these choppy waters, Ben, because if Rubio's out, that means that Devin Booker at 7,900, it's a tough matchup, but would it be worth getting to if Rubio's out, knowing that both usage and assist rate spike?
I think so. Tough matchup, but I'll say this. I think this spread screams trap. The Nuggets have won, I think it's 6 or 7 in a row. The Suns have lost a bunch in a row. It's only 3.5 points. I kind of like the Suns in this game to win the game, actually, which is a side note. But if Rubio is out, Devin Booker, we know he's going to be busy either way. And I guess some value would Okobo be on your radar then in terms of opening it up if no Rubio again?
Yeah, certainly. So I was reading a tweet from Ian Rappaport. He said Marshawn Lynch and the Seahawks are open to a reunion, and Lynch has told people he plans to travel to Seattle today to discuss it.
Yeah, they ran out of running backs, so
they literally lost their entire backfield in the course of a couple weeks.
So that's
pretty crazy.
They got serious problems. They got wizard problems.
Yes, they do. Sorry to that's could be significant news, but for another day. Elie Okobo played 30 minutes last time.
Yep,
30 minutes. Yeah. He's 3,700. I would say it's fair to state that if Rubio ends up sitting, Elie Okobo becomes one of the best value plays on the slate.
And ownership will certainly gravitate towards that, and we'll see. Again, we talk about that all the time. The more value that opens up, the more opportunities to go scars and scrubs you're going to have. Guys like Harden will be directly tied to him, which is fine. You just want to be aware of it. So for me, I prefer the Suns backcourt. I don't know if I want to be really messing around with the bigs too much. Anything else really stand out to you on the Phoenix side? I think for me, it mostly hinges if Rubio sits, then what do we do? Right,
for sure. I would say, it's Elie Okobo if he's out. We'll get to a couple other players in a moment. And then Devin Booker. The front court situation here, I'm really not looking to target. Aaron Baines got 32 minutes last game. That could be appealing. And on the Nuggets side, though, I don't really feel like paying for Murray here. Will Barton is reasonably priced. I think he's fine against Phoenix. That would be the one guy. And Kelly Oubre is at least getting a ton of minutes, but it is a difficult matchup. You'd be playing him just for the minutes.
Yeah, I think that's really what it's about. But on an 11-game slate, you can find some better spots, in my opinion. The minutes will be there, and if certainly volume is pertinent, we all know that. But I'm not good game in life, in my opinion, just because there's a very real chance I bet the Suns today. Could be a donkey move, but we'll see. Not sure. I'm going to be really targeting this one too heavily in the DFS world, though.
Portland and New Orleans, 3 games to go here. Coming up next, strategy show with Manny, Laura, and myself. You've got the Portland Trailblazers in what should be a pretty appealing game. It's the highest total on the slate, 230, 118 implied for Portland. They're 6-point favorites. How much do you like the Blazers here?
So I think you can make a case for their big name players. You know, Lillard is someone we just talked about. I would have him if Rubio sits, Booker and him would be very close. If not, Lillard is a guy that I really do like in this spot. Reasonably priced, good matchup at home. I think he can do damage. And then on in terms of the front court, I got to give credit where credit is due. Hassan Whiteside, just been putting up ridiculous numbers, and I know he gets it done. Block machine. So I have no problem going to either of those guys for the Blazers. Don't see a ton of value for them though.
Yeah, I like Lillard here. I like the fact that the New Orleans Pelicans are, look, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. You can't overstate things like this, right? They're a terrible defensive team that plays at an elevated pace. It just makes for good games. So I like Lillard. Whiteside's price is, in my opinion, at $7,900, incredibly reasonable. Very reasonable. Love me some Whiteside today. He's getting big minutes. I'm all over that. And then on the other side, like, I don't mind, and I'm not really big on like running things back, but I do think that, Drew Holiday is a little bit inexpensive. I know he hasn't been great, but $7,800 on DraftKings to me is totally fine. Brandon Ingram's a bit pricey, but I just think this entire game is really appealing, Ben. And sure, the Blazers are 6-point favorites, but they're not a particularly good basketball team. I think this stays close. And if Carmelo Anthony's out, I don't think I really do anything there. There's nobody that can back him up unless like Mario Hezonja gets the start. That would be the one guy where I'd say, okay, at minimum salary, I could get there. Outside of that, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, Bazemore, I think would be all right, but it's on the fence for me, to be honest. And just to echo your thoughts on Holiday before, because that's really all I have to say on this. I think he makes another great play. It's just you're weighing him against Lillard on the other side, Devin Booker, which the Rubio news would prioritize that for me. But there's no doubt that he's in a very good spot as well.
All right. Hey, if you guys enjoy the show, hit us with a thumbs up, like that video, help support us here. Sorry about the technical issues earlier. My power just went out, but hey, we're back and we're making it happen. We got 2 games to go. CJ McCollum, we had a question. I like McCollum. He's perfectly fine. 6,500. I don't like playing him with Lillard though, because it definitely feels like they trade big games. But at that price tag, I'm more than happy with it. Let's talk Sacramento and Houston and then close it out with the Warriors and Minnesota. Ben, how are we attacking this Sacramento game?
So yeah, this is another game that I have a couple plays that I like, starting with De'Aaron Fox. He's come back. The minutes pretty secure, and he's just playing well. It's a good spot against the Rockets. We know points are going to be put up in this one, so he makes a staple of what I'm really preaching, which is mostly balanced builds tonight. Then you have Marvin Bagley, who I wish he was getting a little more work. If we got the starting nod with him, I would really gravitate towards him. You've got guys like Holmes, but for me, it's just mid-range plays for Sacramento. I don't really like Hield too much. Everyone else kind of, on the fence of being in play for me, though.
Okay. Yeah. So I think James Harden's price is just way too low.
Yeah, so absolutely.
And you know what? I think the price tag is also too low on Russell Westbrook. They're both playing monster minutes going up against a pretty underwhelming Sacramento team. It's going to be tough for me to get away from this. I know the Kings play at a slower pace, but this game still is tied for the highest total on the entire slate. So Westbrook and Harden are both in play for me. Clint Capella is $7,400 specifically on DraftKings. He's playing 35 minutes a game. I love that. And like you said, De'Aaron Fox, that price tag is very reasonable as well. And then Marvin Bagley, dude, this game, I know Houston's defense has been better, but Bagley's minutes are trending upward. For me, Harden, Westbrook, Capella, De'Aaron Fox, Bagley. You can make arguments for a lot of players in this game. It's still early, so we don't need to go in depth here. But right now, this would be one of my favorite games to target, specifically on DraftKings, where the prices are just way too low.
Definitely. I mean, for me, I'm right in line with you. In terms of Capella specifically, there's a couple other centers that we've already talked about that I do have. I like Vooch, Whiteside, but this is a game with a lot of plays. They're just mostly where you're going to be spending a lot of money, and that's fine. Guys like Westbrook and Harden.
Yeah, and Capella's probable to play here, so keep that in mind. He's played 35, 40, 38, and 36 over his last 4 games. I love that. Do you have anybody else here that you want to touch on before we move on?
No, I think that really covers what is a pretty appealing game.
All right, and I will say Rashawn Holmes, 29 minutes last time. It doesn't look like Bagley is going to be the direct backup anymore, which is very, very encouraging. And hopefully we'll see those more minutes. Obviously, we know he's not the direct backup anymore, but it'll be interesting to see if he returns to the starting lineup. If that's the case, you're definitely going to like him even more. But I think there's potential for him to get back up to 30 minutes today, and that would be great. All right, let's close it out. Golden State and Minnesota. Remember, the deeper dive's coming up later today with Adam Scher and myself and Live Before Lock. I don't know if Josh will be with us. It looks like he's out of commission. But Shabazz Napier played 29 minutes last game, Ben, and I don't know if what we should be projecting him for in this game. I really have no idea what we should be projecting him for. Karl Anthony Towns is questionable again. He's missed a couple games in a row. What are you doing here with the Warriors and the Minnesota Timberwolves?
Yeah, I mean, Napier is a guy, it's hard to project those minutes, but if he's going to get even mid-20s, he's going to have a lot of opportunity to do damage. With Towns, to me, it's, I don't have interest if he plays. If he sits, Gorgie is going to be very popular, as he should be. He instantly becomes a very viable guy. And then real quick for me, just on the other side of the game, someone like Damon Lee, another lower end play where you can open up some value for yourself. These late games, don't count your winnings. I know a lot of people are going to stack the Wizards and the Knicks. Don't go out buying anything just yet, because these 10 o'clock games, 10:30 games have a lot of appeal.
Dude, these are some of the best games. And honestly, if Towns is out, I don't care what ownership is going to look like on Gorgie Jang. Yep. At $4,600 on DraftKings, after coming off a 36-minute game, he's $4,300 on FanDuel, and on Yahoo, you've got him coming in at 15. There's no way you don't play him. I just don't see any way that you don't play him at that price coming on, because even if he plays 25 minutes, he very likely isn't going to hurt you.
No, not at all. That would be someone I would just plug in and work around it.
Let me ask you though about the Warriors. Is there anything that you really like here?
No, I mean, I don't really like anything, but I do think you can make a case for some of those, shooting guards guys, whether it's Alec Burks.
I like Russell quite a bit, honestly.
Do you? Okay.
Well, just because it's a fast-paced, high-scoring game, and he's got monster usage.
Yeah, I think you're competing against Booker, Lillard, guys like that. So there's a lot of options besides him, but it's an easy case to make.
All right. Anything else, Ben?
No, I just want to say real quick to everyone, happy holidays. It's a great time of the year. Obviously, I will say real quick, though, if you are struggling, because it can be a tough time of the year for you, people thinking about you, there are resources out there. But we hope everyone enjoys the holidays. Laffy, thanks for letting me sub in for Josh. Merry Christmas, everyone. And like I said, enjoy.
Awesome wise words from Ben Rasa. Great stuff. Thanks for hanging out with us. As always, we'll be back tonight on the Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock Strategy Show. Manny, Laura, and myself coming up next.